Ladies, gents, thems, my name is Ash Morgan and welcome to my channel. You can think of me as your rich, eccentric, well-traveled lesbian auntie. We're out for coffee and I'm about to spill the tea, the gay history tea. So if queer historical figures are your vibe, then go ahead and like and subscribe. Okay guys, I keep on researching all during the day and then recording at night and I'm fucking exhausted. So yeah, sorry about that. Sorry I seem so tired. I'm going to try to start filming during the day. Okay, so today we are doing something a little different. We're taking a look into my family tree, my ancestry and culture, aka Mormonism, or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So apparently there is a decent amount of queerness in the history of the Mormon Church, which makes so much sense because there's queerness everywhere in every history. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of surviving evidence and accounts from said people, so I just kind of have little short snapshots of people. So today we are going to talk about my third great grandpa, Brigham Morris Young, and then we're actually going to do a Q&A. I asked people on Instagram to ask me anything about being raised Mormon and growing up as a lesbian. So a little background for those of you who don't know much about the Mormon Church. The Mormon Church believes that they have an active prophet who is giving them the deets and the lowdown on what they need to be doing right now. So the first prophet you might know of was Joseph Smith. There's a lot of info there. If you ever want me to do a video on that, that would be a whole thing. And then the second prophet was actually my dear great-great-great-grandfather, Brigham Young. So I'm actually related to Brigham Young by two of his wives. He is both my great uncle and my great grandfather, but pushing all of that weird polygamous Mormon incestness aside, we're going to talk about his 18th wife. So Brigham Young actually was both the prophet of the church and the governor of Utah. So separation of church and state who? He basically ruled everything, okay? And this is a lot of the reason why the government was against the Mormon church and trying to get after them, because they're literally taking all these polygamous wives and doing their own thing and trying to act like they just owned Utah and they had no higher governmental power. Mormons thought that it was just because they were the chosen people and Satan was just getting in the hearts of the government, and that's why I think it's safe to say that that may not be the reason. So we are gonna look at Brigham Young's 18th wife, who is not my grandma. Her name is Margaret Pierce, and she married Brigham Young when he was 43 and she was 22. So off to a great start. And in true Mormon fashion, he also married her sister. So they had a son named Brigham Morris Young, aka Morris, who is the hero of this story, okay? Now, Morris was born in 1854 and he died in 1931 at age 71. So he actually served two different Mormon missions, which I don't know if you know what a mission is. It's basically where members of the Mormon church go and proselyte in different countries and states and spread the good word of Jesus Christ. And he served two of those missions in Hawaii, then came home and started the Young Men's Organization, which I don't know if you know what the Young Men's Organization is. If you're not Mormon, you probably wouldn't. There's two different organizations in the church, the Young Men's and the Young Women's. So basically that's just for the teenagers age 13 to 18. I was in Young Women's throughout that duration. Basically, the boys and the girls split off in one of the hours of church because at least until I stopped going, there were 3 hours of church every Sunday. Apparently they changed that to 2 right after I left, which is great. 1 hour is just with the Young Men's and 1 is just with the Young Women's, so you're just kind of with your crew. With Young Men's, they also like plan all these camping trips and really fun things for Mutual. I just realized that I did not even explain what Mutual is. So Mutual is basically like a weekly activity that the youth of the Mormon church go to. For me, growing up, it was like Wednesday nights from like 6 to 9 p.m. Whereas the young women got to, you know, do activities where they wrote letters to their future husbands, So Morris married Celestia Snow, who was actually the daughter of Lorenzo Snow, who would become the 5th prophet of the Mormon church. So he's kind of got like Mormon royalty on all sides. So here's where the story actually gets interesting. In 1885, aka about 10-ish years after Brigham Young, his father, died, Morris actually started dressing in drag and performing under the stage name Madame Patterini. Apparently he had a very high falsetto and he would sing Italian opera on stage. And some people didn't even realize that he was a guy. So he just had a very fabulous persona. And I know what you're thinking, like, was this allowed? Did he do this in secret? Like, how did he get away with this? No, he did not do it in secret. He actually performed at many a church event. It was thought to be a very family-friendly show. Now, I personally think of drag as being a family-friendly event, but it's kind of strange to think that the early 1900s Mormons thought so too. I think that honestly the Mormons just kind of saw what they wanted to see. They were like, no, he's not gay or trans. What even is that? Like, he's just, you know, performing. He's just the prophet's son, just giving us a good performance, you know? Also, fun fact, after I recorded this video, I found out that apparently there is a gin named Madame Patterini gin that was made after him. I'm guessing by some ex-Mormon, but that's pretty cool. And gin is my favorite alcohol, so I'm just gonna have to go buy me some of that. I also think that it's interesting to note that he did start performing after Brigham Young's death. Now, Brigham Young, 30 years earlier, had actually caught this man, Almarin Grow, who was an active Mormon member, and he was actually cross-dressing in his wife's clothes, and Brigham Young heard of this and he was like, no, that is not what we manly Mormon men do. Now, Brigham Young sent him south, whatever that means, and told him to never return, leaving his whole family. I'm just guessing that Morris probably felt safer performing in his drag shows after his father had already died. Also, I heard apparently that the early prophets and members of the church were pretty chill about queerness, but I cannot back that up with fact. I need to do a lot more research into that because I've heard a lot of negative stories too. But a fun fact, Wilford Woodruff, who would become one of the other future prophets of the Mormon church in the 1880s, actually dressed up in a bonnet and women's dress in order to hide from government law enforcement who were trying to arrest him for having a bunch of wives. Apparently there were quite a few cross-dressing Mormons at this time. Now, we can't really say, like, was Morris gay? Was he trans? I can safely assume one or the other. Fun fact, I found out after I recorded this that Morris actually drove horse-drawn streetcars, which at the time it was like a stereotype that like effeminate gay men drove the streetcars around. So that's a little incriminating. Actually, Walt Whitman found a lot of his male lovers from streetcar drivers, which is a little funny, a little suspect. And Morris's streetcar route was actually from the Utah Central Railroad Depot to the Wasatch Municipal Baths, which at the time were an active cruising zone for homosexual men. He was married to his wife until he died, which I feel like seems like the good Mormon thing to do, which does not necessarily mean that you are not queer in some way. Although all I have to say is that I am very proud of my third great uncle for doing his thing, even in the early 1900s, and the queerness came down the line, and here I am today. So thank you for your legacy, Uncle Morris. Okay, unfortunately, that is literally all the information that I have on Madame Patterini. That's the thing about all this Mormon history that I've been looking up. There are queer people and there's figures and there's things you can find out, but there's just not a lot of information. Onto my own juice, okay? We're gonna get straight into my time as a Mormon and my life as a lesbian. So here is the first question. Did you come out before or after leaving the church? I'm in the same boat. Love you, by the way. Ah, thank you. And also, I'm very sorry that you're going through this too. I came out after I left the Mormon church. I actually made the decision that I was leaving the church, and I swear to God, as soon as I made that decision, the first thought that came to my mind was, I am a lesbian. Like, I just knew it deep in my bones. And so then I publicly came out to some shortly after that, and then to others like a year and a half later. How did your family feel? Was it hard to tell them? Yes, it was so hard for me to tell them. I meant to tell them multiple times and kept chickening out because I was living in Utah at the time and they were in Arizona. And so I was like, I need to do this in person. I just felt like I needed to. And I kept on going down to Arizona and then being like, nope, not today, So I actually had to send them a text before I was a few days before I was visiting them, and I told them like, hey, when I see you, there's something really exciting I want to tell you, because I knew that it would make them ask me about it, and I tried to frame it in a positive way. But yeah, so I told my parents in the car when we were driving to vacation, and my dad was just like, we love you no matter what, like, you're so amazing, like, there's nothing you could do that we wouldn't love you, like, you're still our girl. Like, he was just, you know, instantly my hype man, making me feel great, which is amazing from a Mormon father. My mom was a little more quiet, but she also just takes a little bit longer to process things, and she has been super sweet to me as well after that, after she had a chance to kind of think about it. Both of my parents have been really loving and accepting of me, because I think that I am lucky to have some of the Mormon parents who actually put their kids above the church, and who choose to love unconditionally and actually be Christ-like. Do have a Mormon friend who was disowned from her family, which is very sad for coming out. Oh yeah, the next question was, do you still have a good relationship with your family? Yes, I do. They love my girlfriend and are super sweet. They actually invited her to my big family reunion, so we're leaving for that tomorrow. So she's gonna go meet my whole dad's side of the family, which will be really fun and interesting. So what made you start questioning the church? So I basically was such a good Mormon, like very good Mormon. I woke up at 6 in the morning every day while I was in high school. For 4 years, I did not miss a single day of reading my scriptures, okay? I went up to Utah to go to college so that I'd be near a bunch of other Mormon people to find the right husband. I ended up getting married in the Mormon temple, and I actually served and like worked in the temple, so I performed all the different rites in the temple. I was just in it, okay? I was so in it. I would beat myself up if I didn't read my scriptures every day. I felt bad because I literally was so depressed at that time that I told my bishop I couldn't hold a calling, which is like a free assignment that you do at church, like being a teacher at church. But I felt so guilty that I wasn't doing anything that I ended up volunteering to work at the temple at 6 in the morning every Wednesday. So like I just like couldn't handle it. I actually ended up volunteering to go on splits with the sister missionaries, which is basically where a member goes out with the missionaries and you just like give your testimony to all the people that they're teaching and stuff, and just like show them how great it is to be in the church, you know? I volunteered for that because I felt guilty that I like wasn't doing enough in the church, even though I was like an A+ Mormon, okay? And I don't know how to explain it, but the energy was just off. I went and did splits with those missionaries, and I just came home feeling so weird. Like I just was like, something felt weird about that, something felt off. And I ended up just like crying to God and basically telling him like, I wish I could just be like a little like a hippie witch and just do my own thing and like not be Mormon. But I know the Mormon church is true, but I'm just so depressed and stressed out by it because I have such high expectations for myself with it, and it's just all encompassing of my whole entire life, that I was like, I'm just gonna take a week break from the church. I told God this, and I was like, I'm gonna take a week off. I'm not even gonna think about the church. I'm not gonna think about reading my scriptures, about anything. I'm just gonna relax and live my life for a week without thinking about the church. I actually told my husband this at the time because I was married for 3 years, and he was like, great, that's a great idea. And so I took a week off from the church, and while I was doing my thing, I had this thought into my mind, and it was like, okay, the Mormon church is like really against anti-Mormon literature and like looking into the history of the church, but if the Mormon church is true, like why would looking into the history of it change the validity of it, you know? So I ended up Googling, I didn't even know how to find anti-Mormon literature. I like Googled ex-Mormon, I think I looked up anti-Mormon literature because I was like, somebody will have said something about it. And I found ex-Mormon Reddit, which led me to the CES letter. The CES letter is basically a compilation of about like 80 pages of all of the weirdness and negative history of the church, and basically like the reasoning for why it's not true. And I sat down and read that whole 80-page little like ebook all in one sitting, and as soon as I finished it, I was just like, nope, it is not true. And as soon as I thought that, like, that's my first thought was, I'm a lesbian, and then my second thought was, wow, I'm allowed to be liberal and have all these different stances on things. And I started thinking about like how unequal women and men were in the church and all these different things. That's how I started questioning, and that's how I went downhill. Okay, did you ever suspect you were attracted to women? Yes, I did, but I didn't acknowledge it. I just like explained away most of my experiences as Satan tempting me, and I just assumed that everybody was tempted by Satan like that. Was there anything growing up that looking back you think, how did I not know? Biggest one I would say that is especially very Mormon-y. I was like 8, I want to say, and my family went on vacation, and I found this like swimsuit catalog in one of the drawers at the Marriott we were staying at, and I took it home with me, and it was like these girls in bikinis. They were pretty covering bikinis, okay? But I was like, oh, okay. And I took it home, and I literally like cut out the girls that I thought were the prettiest, and I just saved them, put them under my bed, and I would just take them out and look at them. Like, I didn't do anything. I didn't know what to do at that stage, okay? But I just would look at them. And I just remember feeling so guilty because I had such an atonement complex from a young age. And I just like was like, wow, God is gonna punish me for this. Like, this is bad. Like, I just knew that it was bad to do. And my first thought was, okay, you know what? I'm like racked with guilt over this. I need to throw these away, and then I need to tell my mom about it. And I felt so ashamed. I was like, I can't tell my mom. Like, if it was boys, I could tell my mom. But since it's girls, I just know that that's extra bad. I can't tell her. So it was like, I don't know where I got that idea or who told me that about repenting and about same-sex attraction, but I already had in my head at the age of 8 that that was so bad. Oh, this one's embarrassing. Also, in high school, I would look up pictures of boobs, and then I would put them on this like secret diary app that I had, and I would tell myself that it was just like a vision board for my future boob job someday. But really, I just liked looking at the boobs. Did you know of any gay people growing up? In person, friends, family, famous, or otherwise? I knew that my parents were friends with a lesbian couple. I had seen their Christmas card, and I would ask them about it, and they'd just kind of give me like a bland answer. But they had always like encouraged us to love everybody, but just that's not what we do. And I remember thinking like, oh, that's really interesting, but I also didn't think that that particular lesbian couple was really that pretty or stylish at the time. I also knew of Ellen, I would say. I think that was really all that I knew. And then in high school, I knew of a few girls that were out as lesbians. I actually was friends with most of them. I just remember thinking, I'm like, I like them, I think they're nice, but like other people think they're weird, and like obviously I don't want to be like that, you know? And they obviously were not my particular style either, and so I didn't really see myself represented in them. In high school though, my senior year, I actually was lab partners with a girl that I had a huge crush on. She had a girlfriend, and she was like very feminine, and I was like, who? Wait, what? Like, she just resembled me more, and I was like, I didn't know we were allowed to think this, you know? Okay, so I totally blanked on this question. I started explaining what it was like to get sealed in the temple, aka to get married in the temple. The question was actually about getting endowed. Endowed is basically going through the Mormon temple before you get married or before you go on a mission. This is when you get your garments, which are like magic underwear as most people think of them. Also, when you just learn the handshakes and the special like words. I thought it was kind of weird, but at the same time, my parents had prepared me for it and told me a lot of the things that happened, so I wasn't that weirded out. Anyway, on to my explanation of getting sealed, basically married in the temple. How was getting endowed in the church? Okay, and for those of you who don't know what that means, the Mormon temples, I don't know if you've seen them. The Mormon temples are where Mormons get married, and they perform different like rituals and rites. And you can only go into the temple if you are a Mormon with a temple recommend. So basically, Mormon marriages, you are not allowed to have sex in any way or do anything too sexual before you get married. You have to go through many bishops' interviews to prove that you are righteous, and then you go through the temple. You wear this very embarrassing outfit and perform all these like hand signals. It's a bunch of Freemason rituals. Getting married there was very unromantic. I wasn't allowed to wear my wedding dress. They didn't talk anything about me and my husband and our love. They just talked about, like, this old man just rambled on about the church and God, and even I, who was super into the church at the time, was kind of put off, and I was like, what was that all about? That wasn't romantic at all. And only members of our families with temple recommends were allowed to attend. 10 out of 10 would not do again. Do not recommend. Okay, your wedding, any deets on that? So I already told you the actual wedding part. So Mormons usually will have a wedding in the temple, and then they walk out of the temple, the photographer's there flashing photos of them walking out of the temple, their family's all there, they take photos of the family in front of the temple, and then sometimes they have a little break, and then they go do a little reception. And that's basically like the wedding party. So you go to the reception. A lot of times the bride and groom will just stand like in a line and have like a bunch of people walk through and talk to them. I didn't want to do that, but the whole wedding, yeah, just random acquaintances were coming up and talking to us the whole time. I actually did mine. This is so embarrassing. I did mine in a church gym. So, how'd your ex-husband react when you came out? Not positively. But I mean, I think that's to be expected. And the end of our relationship also did not go great, and we also are not on good terms now. What other aspects of the church made you leave it? Gay ex-Mormon here too. Oh, hello. Yeah, so it was basically the history. If any of you guys are interested in reading the CS letter, I'll put it below. I'm kind of interested in doing some like Mormon history videos. It's just facts, fam. The history really pulled me away from it. And then also just the way that women and gays are treated in the church as well. Were you comfy with your peers finding out after coming out? I'm also queer and ex-mom. No, I was not. right after I got divorced, I was convinced I was a lesbian and I was trying to date girls, but it just felt so hard. First of all, I'd been in a relationship for 3 years. I already didn't know how to flirt, and then with women, I'd never done that. I had zero clue, and I knew no gay people at all. So I was just on my own with dating apps, and I just wasn't coming across people that I was interested in. And it was so hard, and I felt so alone, and I just remember like sobbing, ugly tears, sobbing anytime I even thought about my parents or people from high school or any random Mormon acquaintances finding out that I liked girls. I just felt like I was like perverted and gross, and I was so ashamed. And I'm not anymore. So I've worked through that, and you absolutely can too. What was your opinion of queer people when you were younger? Honestly, just that they weren't righteous and that they weren't stylish. Any tips for those in similar situations wanting to leave the church? Yeah, trust your gut. This is the same thing I tell everybody who's questioning leaving their partners and coming out. Nobody but you knows the answer. Nobody but you knows what's inside your heart. But I had to basically come to this place where I was like, you know what? I am prepared to lose my family and friends and whole community to choose myself over anybody else. With leaving the church, it's really nice to have ex-Mormons around you. And there are a lot of Facebook, like ex-Mormon Facebook groups. I can link some below if you're interested in joining and you need that support. I looked up these Facebook groups constantly as I was leaving the church, and it was extremely helpful for me. Okay, that is all the questions that I have today. If you're interested in hearing more like Mormon history or more facts about Mormons and my experience, do let me know. I also just want to hear what you're interested in learning about. What do you want me to talk about next time? Anyway, yeah, thanks for listening. Go ahead and like, subscribe, comment below what you want to hear from me, and I will see you next time. Bye.